we will continue with our lectures of human rights. Now in the week number 5, in which we are seeing specifically human rights about many topics. No? So, well, this lecture will be about the following things. Right. First, freedom in general, because it's related to the will, no? And the act of the will also, no? Both things. We have seen, remember, the person as such and all the rights related to the person, then the intellect and all the rights more or less related to the intellect. We will develop much more these things. And now we will see the will, the rights related to the will. That's why we will talk about that. After that, we will begin with the rights related with the body, to the body. And one of the characteristics of the body is that have space, can move into the space, no? From here to there, and so on. So there are so many rights related to the space, for example, freedom of movement, residence, or assembly also. And finally, we will see just a little of the right to identity. So more or less, this is the learning objectives of today. By the way, I have a new background. I took this background in Crescent Island, a beautiful island. I had the opportunity to be there. Your country is really incredible, no? Well, I'm taking backgrounds from your country because it's beautiful. Well, okay, let's continue with our lecture. First, we will see what it means freedom, but we will begin now with a war. It's an incredible war, the Civil War of the United States of America. For sure, you have heard something about this war, and I think that is quite related to the topic of freedom. So, for sure, you will remember. Well, there are continuous people coming here. Well, okay, for sure you will remember that was about slavery. Slavery was an issue from the very beginning of the United States of America. They signed the Constitution in 1797. They decided, well, it was a hard issue. There were many difficult issues and conflicts, problems. They decided so well many things, no, about it. For example, to have a Senate and also a Congress. Well, it helps to the most populated states and the less populated states. Well, many things, but when they had to deal with the slavery, they were not able to decide anything. They decided just, well, let's talk about this later. In 10, 20 years, probably could be more peace and we can deal with that problem, no? So they didn't decide anything in the Constitution of the United States. But that was a problem, an issue. 10, 20 years passed and nothing happened. there was no decision that was so difficult for this thing. What happened after that? Well, before the Civil War, 1860, more or less the population of the United States of America was like this, no? 28 million of white people, muchungos, and 4 million of African people, more or less. So you can imagine more or less well, the problems that could be there, and especially 4 million in the south. The south. Why in the south? Well, because they had many farms, agriculture, and many things, no? So they developed at that time a lot of cotton. I don't know if you know the plant, the flower of the cotton. No, here you have an example. And they were exporting, especially to Europe, tons of cotton, incredible amounts of cotton. They have really a strong power in this field. Then you will see. So, sorry about that. I'm solving here. So the cotton, it's quite interesting to understand very well how the Civil War developed, because was one of the causes of the Civil War. You have two kinds of states. In the south, the states were producing cotton, exporting, and receiving a lot of money from Europe. First, was an important thing in that time, cotton. All the clothes and many things. At that time, there were no plastic, so an important thing. But on the other hand, in the north, the states didn't develop cotton, almost nothing. But they had some industry, some factories, some many things and little by little they developed this the industry with the techniques, electricity, and also little by little in the north of the United States they developed these kind of things. What was so important, because the most industrialized part of the United States was in the north. So they didn't feel the need of have a manpower not to work in such amount that in the south, more or less. It's incredible because, well, more or less you can see more or less when bad things like slavery are approved in some places, there are many issues, many arguments, not always related directly with dignity of the person. No? Aristotle, as you know, they said, well, we need slavery because we need to cultivate and to have people working in the farms and so on. Obviously, he was errant. But in any case, so most of the, well, probably all of the states of the South approved the slavery. In the North, most of them no. In the middle, some of them yes and no. And here in the West, Kentucky, for example, well, more or less they approved more or less. Yeah. So there were many issues also, because at the very beginning, the United States is union of the states in the same name, no? In a federal government, And you can see also in many places, in any county and in any state, well, that there is a little fight, a little battle between the central power and the power, in this case, of each state, no, that wants to maintain the power and not to be more or less independent, at least autonomous, to protect the power. So at that time was so clear that each state had some rights. Each state in the United States had its own constitution, its own. So, and there was also in one of the biggest states, Texas, a clause in the Constitution, and it still is now, that says that we have, even after signing the Union to the United States, no, the right to leave from the Union. So it was an important issue, and many countries and many states of the United States, especially in the South, have at that time that clause. I don't know how many, but I know that Texas now still have this clause in the Constitution. It's incredible, no? So what happened after that? More or less, well, that little by little, especially the Christian movement in the United States, the Puritans also, well, many people said, well, we have to abolish the slavery. This is a sin, this is against the human dignity, this is against the Bible, this is against our creed, this is not human. Now, you can imagine the whole discourse, of course, that is so clear nowadays. But well, a little by little, well, in the first 6 decades of the United States, well, the mentality began to change, especially in some places of the United States. And one of the really most important issues in the story of the Civil War was Lincoln, the elections in which the Republican Party, Lincoln, won, no? Won in November 6 of 1860. And that was so important because Lincoln was clearly anti-slavery. Clearly, he said, well, we don't want the slave. But in any case, he never said that he will abolish the slavery in the whole United States. Why? Because it was an issue. With that, he will never won. He could never won the election of this. However, he said that in these states, the territories, that is important, the concept, the notion of territories. These territories, he wants to approve that they have no slavery. What are the territories? Well, remember, the United States at that time, they were increasing the territories, no? By many means, no? Buying, conquering, by war, by dealings with another states. So they conquered all these territories, no? In the middle, as you know. and some of them were fighting against, for example, Mexico here, and others in many ways. So more or less a kind of agreement between North and South. They decide that some territories will be pro-slavery, especially in the South, and some of them against. Well, there will be a ban of slavery, especially in the North. So they were split more or less half and a half, more or less. But Lincoln said, no, we have to free all these territories, and we will ban the slavery. And that was an issue at that time, especially for the South. The South immediately said, well, we have in our Constitution the possibility to leave the Union. We will leave. If you will do that, we will leave the Union. We will leave the Union. So they realized that, well, there is a difficulty in this thing. And Lincoln immediately respond the thing that you can see in your screen. No? I have no purpose directly or indirectly to interfere with the institution of slavery in the United States where it exists. I believe I have no lawful right to do so, and I have no inclination to do so. This was the first speech of Lincoln, saying, well, don't worry, don't leave the Union, let's remain united, but because I will not touch your autonomy, your autonomy of each country, I will not touch about this important issue, we can decide later, but just in the territories, no? This thing that they have not properly the same organization, the same authorities that in the States, these territories. Now, the United States of America have one territory, I think that Guam, and probably in another place. Well, in any case, they are not the states properly. So, what happened after that? That the whole states of this, well, no, not the whole, at the very beginning, just some of them decided to leave the Union. Leave the Union, and they sent some advices. Well, also they say, well, we will leave, and after that, there was an issue, especially here in Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter was a port in the sea, a harbor that the Confederate, the first 6, 7, I think so, Confederate states put the first little issue, this first little battle, saying, well, we don't want your authorities here, the authorities of the federal government. Well, we will expel all of them. Well, there was a little battle, and they won. And they won that little battle. So this is interesting. Now you can see the map. No, the states in red are the states seceded before April 15, just 3 days after that battle, as you can see. No. So you can see Texas, 7 states, Florida, and some others. No, they were others that after that they joined the Confederate Confederate States against the United States. No? They wanted the Confederation, the United States of America. At the very beginning, before the Constitution, they had the Confederation. They want to return to the same idea of the Confederation. No? More or less, no? In yellow, the Union States that permitted slavery, well, it was not so clear what will be the future at that time, at the very beginning of the Civil War, those states. In any case, they remained more or less neutral, and at the end of the day, they supported more the North than the South. And finally, in blue, the Union States that banned slavery, the United States. In Kentucky, however, it was not so clear. Kentucky, the West, who party will join, and that's why Lincoln was so cautious saying each phrase, no, and that's why he never said at the very beginning, "I want to ban the slavery in the whole United States." But after the first battle, he said, "Well, this is an issue. You are fighting with us." Well, things change a lot. In April 16, well, after 1 year later, no, he said absolutely the contrary speech. No, he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, outlawing slavery with, and this is important for the discussion that we will have, with a compensation to loyal Unionist slaveholders of up to 300 for each slave. So, Mungai, yes, don't you want to ask, comment, say something?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yes.
So sorry to take you back, but seeing as Lincoln didn't declare that he wanted to abolish slavery in all the states, why is it that certain members of the Union decided to secede, and what was the Union in the first place? I missed that bit. I missed the bit you were explaining on
Okay.
Members of the Union deciding to secede.
Yeah. So because they in the South, there were many causes. The main issue probably could be the slavery, but was not the only issue. Slavery, states' rights, remember, the autonomy that is so important, no? Each state wants to remain with autonomy, and it means that the federal government cannot impose you anything that is not in the Constitution of the United States, and slavery was not in the Constitution of the United States. So in the South, they saw that the North and Lincoln are trying to impose new duties, new obligations to the South, destroying the more autonomy. Okay, that is one thing. Then there was a crisis with these territories. Obviously, the main cause for many people is that slavery. No? The South had a lot of farm, they need a lot of manpower to work, so they promote slavery, and the North no. Okay, and Lincoln won and said, well, I want to these territories. Remember, there was a kind of agreed half and a half, no? In the North, you can ban slavery, in the South, no. So Lincoln said, I want to ban this, and that's why they said, well, you are against our autonomy. So there were many causes, not just one. And this is important, as I said, to understand that many times in the history, well, it's so clear that this is not good, no? But there are more causes that support the same evil things. Okay, more or less.
Yeah, then one final clarification. So the territories, was slavery abolished there, or was it the half and half agreement in the territory?
There was a kind of half agreement. Yeah, some of them were pro in the south, especially they practiced that, and in the north they didn't. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
More or less.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome. So after that, after the first year, Lincoln realized that, well, they want to be split, leave the Union. We have to fight. They began the first battles, the first encounters here in Fort Sumter on April 12th. So Lincoln said, no, we have to ban absolutely. And after that, he realized that the West followed him. It was incredible, because you can see that there's not so many people here in this part. But he realized that he had some doubts at the very beginning, and after 1 year, he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and all things changed, as you can see. No, they gained the support of here. No, so let's see who was the commander of the South. No, the commander, obviously, in the North, in the Union, is the same flag of the Union, Abraham Lincoln. And in the South, Robert Edward Lee. And this is so important. Why? Because more or less they have more or less at the very beginning half of the population, more or less in territories, but well, the North more industrialized, and the South with more farms. And this was a great commander, so great of the South, of Virginia, I think so. So great that the same people of the North, Lincoln and others command, asked him, to Robert Edward Lee, to help in the army of the North, to hire him, no? And he said one interesting thing that is so clear, no? Well, I really want to support the Union. And probably he was not so clear about slavery. So, but he was the commander of the defense of the South. Why? Because he said, well, my home is Virginia. I cannot fight against my home. Incredible, no? So you can realize that there could be supporters of everything, but not because they support ideologically these kind of things, no? I want the Union, and that's why he refused the offer of the North, no, to command the troops of the North. So he said, well, I cannot fight against my home. So he was hired at the end in the South. So incredible, no? You can see also here, the same flag, but the flag for the troops, not for the dress code of the of the troops of the South, obviously. No? So let's see more or less the plans of each party. No? Obviously, I will put here Lincoln, but was not exactly Lincoln. It was probably well, many commanders of the North that would support him. especially General Scott. General Scott of the North with Lincoln decide, well, our plan to attack is the Anaconda plan. Anaconda plan. What is that? Well, like a snake, like a snake. We are here, more or less here. We well, the first battle, so we will blockade all the ships of the south, so they will never export again cotton to Europe. And without exportations, they will not have how to develop the reserves, so they will be easy to attack. After the blocking the exportations, the ships and everything, we will go by here, taking the Mississippi River and all the communications. Remember, at that time there were no planes, just horses and ships, boats, and these kind of things. No, so they decide, well, we will go by here, and we will take all the main routes that was at that time the river, especially the Mississippi River. After that, we will split into the south, and then we will attack here, and we will split again the south in a second. That was more or less the plan, and was so. There were many other things, but because strategically they decide also to use for the first time one weapon that was never used in the history of the humankind. That was the train. The train. The train. It was so incredible how that weapon had effect, and the telegraph also. So that was the north. What about the south? Robert E. Lee, Edward Lee. Remember, he was a great commander, a great commander. He realized that he had not industry, but he said, well, let's try to attack the north. You can see here Washington, D.C. Don't you? Okay, here, more or less, no? So he said, we have to attack in such a way that all the people, that the authorities, the government, realize that, well, it's too strong the attack. No, we have to, in this way, we will conquer some politicians of the and authorities of the north, and with this we can manage everything. No, so he attacked to the north in Gettysburg, and before that, in some places, he won in some places, but in Gettysburg, he was defeated. So that is his plan to this, and in this way we can divide also the north, no? Because going from here, we got first here, and here we will defend some more or less. But the south had an error, an incredible error. Well, at the very beginning, it seems that was not. The Southrons voluntarily embargoed cotton ships. Voluntarily. Why? You will realize that this is incredible, no? Because two things. First one, they hope at that time to start an economic depression in Europe that will force Britain to enter the war to get cotton. But this didn't work. Incredible. Meanwhile, and the second reason, the war created employment to the same people that used to produce cotton. We will use, he said, then we will employ them for arms makers, iron workers, and ships to transport weapons. So, and at the very beginning, he developed a lot of incredible ships. Later, they had 300 ships more, and also guns and cannons and things, because the South had none of these things. No, he developed a machine of guns and cannons and things, a machine of war. No? So that was the plan of Lee. I don't know if you know more or less the history. But at the very beginning, he was going to the north. He won the first battle, Robert Lee, and there is a picture of that time, more or less. The Confederate troops escorting the captured African American civilians sought into slavery to Gettysburg when he was going there. No? And here was the first battle, the most important battle of the Civil War. It was the most important one in Gettysburg. Why? Because, first, to attack is so difficult. It's not so easy. No. More easy is to defend our territories. No. But second, he had not so many troops, and you can see this is in June 3 to July 3 in 1863. After two years of the war, the North developed a lot of machines and a lot of things to develop, a lot of technical development to fight. This seems to be the first, for some people, the first industrial war in which technological might is used to achieve military supremacy in a war. So there were many inventions. For example, the train that I told you, and you will see, and the telegraph to communicate instantly between places. No? And also steam-powered ironclad warships, steam-powered ironclad. They were discovered more or less some years ago, but never used it in a war. In this war, they used it, the North, especially. On the other hand, for example, the industrialized North developed so many arms. For example, the repeating fire arms, such as the Henry rifle, the Spencer rifle, also the Colt revolving rifle. I don't know if you know a little about arms and rifles and these kind of things. And the triplet and the Scott carabine and others. No, all of them developed in this war. It's incredible. No, the rapid firing weapons, also the machine guns and many things that now are so common were discovered by the North, by the industrialized. So, as you can see, also in the numbers in the North were superior. At that time in Gettysburg was so bad, more or less 100,000 casualties in this battle, just in this battle. The whole battle was more or less, the whole war was more or less a million of casualties. So he lost this war and he had to escape to the south again. No? they trying to defend the Confederacy. So this is more or less a picture of the war of Pittsburgh, of people fighting, 100,000 million deaths, casualties. Well, this is incredible, no? I think that is a good picture, and you can see what this is. So, and this is important to understand now why the train was so important at that time. Here you have in red the Mississippi River. Okay, remember how to move in this long and very big territory. Well, the fast way was by horse at that time. That's why in many wars, the ones who used better the horses won the war. That is Genghis Khan, for example, in the year 1000. Genghis Khan, more well, early. So, but more or less, so. Now we want to control this, and so the north was to split the south in two, by the river, no, by the river. You can see here. So they attack when Lee was attacking in the north. They were attacking here to split. You can see Texas here and here. No? So. And then it's incredible because the escape of Lee was slow. Remember that this is so big, no? These territories, no? But the same troops that in one day were fighting here, in 2 days could be fighting here in the south because the train. Because the ships and the river, and to move faster. Well, when the whole troops of Lee were in the north, he after 2 days received another battle here where he had not so many people, and that's why it's so easy to go into the south and to split first here, and then in Atlanta. Atlanta was one of the last most important also battles of the war. So you can see more or less how it ends now. So that was so important. Well, the industry, the things, and at the end, the state, Lee had to surrender. Well, there was an amendment of the Constitution of the United States saying, well, that there will be no slavery. But you can see here more or less the numbers, and you can realize in 1860, the Union, the United States had 22 million, and the Confederacy, the population, without the neutral states, and well, the really supporters, no, just 9 million, no, and after that, well, less even, no, the slaves in the Union was just 500,000, in the Confederacy was 3.5 million people. After that, well, there remain some of them. The soldiers, no, is the double in the north, the Union. The railroad miles, well, also the same, the double in the Union, and in the Confederacy not so much. And after the war, they destroyed everything, no, and the arms productions also, well, at the beginning was good for the Confederacy, but they didn't want any support of the Europe, so, and they had no way to escape by the ocean. So, and the cotton, you can see here that at the very beginning, the Confederacy had a lot of cotton, and after that, nothing. And the south, the north began to produce cotton. And finally, that is also interesting for this subject, no? There was a case, a famous case, Texas versus White in 1869. So Texas decided, well, we will leave, we have in our constitution this, but the United States Supreme Court ruled that Texas had remained a state ever since it first joined the Union, despite claims that it joined the Confederate States. The court further held that the constitutions did not permit states to unilaterally secede from the United States. That is interesting, no? Because what about the freedom of the peoples to auto-govern their destiny, their fate? Well, it's not so clear, but there was a case law, and it was ruled in this way. So that's why Texas is still here. No? So that was the history, and there will be the questions to discuss first in the breakout rooms, and after the breakout rooms all together. So this is a monument, a memorial, the most recent memorial that I found, a memorial sculpture in Bordeaux, France, at the end of 2019 for the commemoration of the abolition of slavery around the world. You can see the flag of France here in this monument. And here you will have the questions to discuss. Have we overcome really slavery or not? Can we put this kind of moments or not? This is quite related with a second question. What is slavery? Because if we overcome, what will we overcome? No? A third question, are there new forms of slavery? Is also related. All of them are related, absolutely related. And finally, how can we overcome slavery if the answer was no at the first question? I don't know if you have in mind another kind of new form of slavery. Any one of you? Ali, for example, I don't know if you have something in your mind.
Okay, for us, I don't know if this would count. Okay, yeah, I think it would. So we discussed about corporate slavery systems, and we discussed about how major companies such as Apple production that are existing in Congo to children and families to essentially be involved in mining with their bare hands of compensation in the form of defense mechanism. So that's one. And yeah, I think Blair talked about it, immigrant slavery, where you're taken up from in the Middle East and you're withdrawn, and eventually you're being subjected to domestic servitude, and you do not have any form of alternative in escaping from those systems of enslavement and engineering enslavements, where so many domestic workers have been taken from India to work within engineering companies as laborers. Also, another one that came up was contractual slavery, where essentially your state in itself decides to sacrifice. Essentially, these contractual negotiations involve your land or property or port system is being taken away by another country because of the country in itself not paying debt. So eventually that in itself takes away the land, and eventually if the land is taken away, then the right to property, ownership of property, and your interaction with that land in itself is taken away.
Okay, that is interesting because nowadays you can have Elvis. Yes, don't you want to say something?
Yes, Prof. So in Group 5, to answer your question on what would there be any other extra forms of slavery that are actually existent within contemporary society? Blair mentioned it, bondage, and we thought that as Group 5 that there could actually also be a possibility of some form of technological addiction that's actually evolving right now.
Yeah.
And then we figured that another flaw with trying to discover forms of slavery is that it's concealed. And so we can only identify that which we actually get to know. And so there could be so many others that we have no idea about.
Yeah. Slavery, well, there could be so many things related to, and that's it. That's because slavery, one of the deepest notions for me, at least, is to treat one human being as an object, no? In any crime, not as an end, an ultimate end, as a mean, no? And this is the, well, you can see that thing in any crime. In any crime, you're not treating people as a human, but so you can say, well, if your employer asks you to work twice times that you need to work, or you have an agreement, well, it's a kind of slavery. I wish, or an addictions, or many things, or some kind of exploitation in the work, or in any place, no? And I will say yes, but no. That is slavery in a broad sense, but not properly, and that's why, because it's not the same. It is the slavery of that time was a brutality, unbelievable. The against the law, but in whole sense, yeah. Nowadays, obviously, there are also crimes, but are not the same, and that's why these other things, the new forms of slavery, probably don't deserve the same, for example, punishment, years of prison, that the other. When we ask properly, what kind of new forms of slavery could be? Well, some of you answered very good. Child sex trafficking, no? Also women trafficking, no? Trafficking in person, in any person. Yeah, that's because they had no right. Or there is a practice in Togo and Ghana about trocosi, no? Of chocosi, also people used to say, pronounce that chocosi. You have a video in the platform to see how incredible and how illegal and that kind of practice could be. Now they abolished that, no, at least formally, but there is still the practice. No, slavery is a real bad things in all cultures in the past. In all cultures, also in Asia, also in many places, even in America. That seems to be what there was also, no? Even between white people, even between American people. So nowadays, well, it's good to put an end to this really bad practice. So, and how can we overcome slavery? I want to finish that idea with well, obviously promoting new laws and many things. But there is an article that it's an optional to read, but I think that is quite interesting. No? Remember, in the Emancipation Act of the United States, they said, well, to the slaveholder, the union will pay $300 at that time. $300 were a lot of dollars. But that article say, well, and what about the countries that lost their people, the families that lost their people? No one paid them. No one paid them. And I think that we can consider seriously a compensation for each country that lost their people, because it means lost in development, lost the most important thing of a country. No, there were no compensation. No, there were compensation just for the owners of the slaves, not for the families of the of those people. And I think that that is a strong argument. Obviously, you can balance the thing that you receive. We also, because I'm part of a country that was colonized, as you know. No? So well, we can see how many things we received and how many things we lost. No? In the balance, it should be the compensation. But I think that the very clear claim right of compensations. Well, that's you have to, if you want, there is an optional article. So I think that we can have the break now. We will continue later. 10 minutes of break. 10 minutes of break. And after 10 minutes of break, we will continue our journey in this great river of human rights. And let's continue with a lecture now with a systematical way, following the same structure that we are following, that is the structure of the human being. No? That first we have to think that the human being is composed by human soul and body, no? And existence also. No? It's not just mode of being, but act of being also, no? And actions, obviously, in the history. We have seen all the properties of the act of being. We have seen the first two properties of the human soul, that is to say, being immaterial and being intelligent and rational. And now we will see the property of freedom, no? Of having free will, and what it implies. And well, an identity. It's a property of the soul, because the body can change and will change, as we know. Every 10 years we renew all our cells in our body, but we will remain the same, no? Because the thing that remains the same is the identity, that is the Aristotelian words, the substance, that is the soul. And finally, the property of the body that we will see next week. Today is just one, the material or corporal property of the body. That is, the body takes place in some specific space in this cosmos. So it means so many things for the law. So there were many kind of rights that we can see. I want to explain a little one question of Ali of the last lecture, that was about, well, is some right an absolute right? Yes. Well, in the human rights courts, there is a division between, well, a categorization, a classification of rights. They used to say, well, some of rights are absolute, others are not absolute but non-derogable, what it means, and others qualified and others limited rights. So, well, I think that from time to time, this could be a little artificial. In any case, have a reason. This categorization have a reason. What it means an absolute right? Well, it's a right that cannot be limited or infringed under any circumstances, not even during a declared state of emergency. Can you hear me? Okay, I think that was a technical issue. So, but in any case, you can read the thing that I was reading. For example, torture. The right not to suffer torture is an absolute right that cannot be limited for any reason. We have seen this, and we have seen also the case of the, for sure you remember, the case of the timing bomb. Well, that was a case, as you know, with a lot of problems and things done. So we can say probably more or less. See, there is people coming. Okay, I'm meeting people. So in any case, you can see that this right more or less is an absolute. There could be an exception. We will see, well, not properly an exception, but a legitimate defense. Well, second, limited rights. There is not explicit justification for the restriction of the rights as from in the qualified rights. In qualified rights, you can limit in certain circumstances, in certain conditions, always with some limits also. No? However, in limited rights, they can be derogated from times of war or in public emergency. And non-derogable rights, well, some of them, for example, family rights or liberty. We are seeing now liberty, no? Well, liberty is non-derogable, but could suffer some limitations, no? Some limitations cannot be suspended in for example, emergency state, well, but it could be limited, more or less. The state of emergency defined two kinds of rights. Here's one, the absolute rights, and second, the non-derogable rights. And when you can limit them is, well, limited rights, and in certain circumstances, qualified rights. But you have some of these in the books, but more or less is an approach that could help you. Now we will talk about freedom. And freedom, a non-derogable right. Some liberty as well, in any case. The act of the will. The will used to be associated, connected, linked with the heart, as well as the intellect with the brain. So that's why I put here the heart. There are kind of acts of the will. One of them more passive, and another is more active. A passive love, I just love someone. Obviously, there is also the desire, no? And active acts, no? The freedom to choose, the having and disposition of things, and the creation, no? Love is always innovative, no? It always is new in some sense, no? I don't know what do you think? Which one could be the most important, the active acts of the will or the passive acts of the will? More or less is more or less, no? Well, seems to be that, well, the active is more, no? But many people used to say no. The most important thing here is the act of love. We have seen also, I don't know if you remember, that we have seen in the first in jurisprudence, love, no? That is an important value of the whole legal system. And that's right. All things that we do because love is the ultimate aim. If we choose something, it's because we love that thing, in some sense, no? In some sense. And we do all things because love. That is important. Is the motor, the motive, the reason that move ourselves to do, to choose, to have, to any kind of disposition, to create, no? Because we love other people, we love ourselves, we love God, or whatever you want, no? We love our pets, anything that you want. So there are many types of freedoms. For example, freedom of each potency and capacity. The potency of the eyes, of the vision, to hear, to smell, to taste, to taste tasty things. No, but listen, I can choose many things, no, between these kind of things. Then we have also freedom of thought and information. We have seen that in the last lecture. Freedom to choose the moral good and to grow in honor. Well, there is the freedom of conscience. We will see a little more about that. Other kind of freedom. Freedom to grow and develop as a human person. We have seen that the right to develop ourselves. There was an important human rights case, as you will remember. So the freedom of work, we will see probably in the last lecture, freedom of work and rest. And which one could be the best kind of rest? For me, the best kind of rest are the feasts, not the parties, the celebration of the most important things of our lives. The freedom to legally specify oneself, ourselves. Freedom to opt for life, health, and bodily integrity. We will see that next week. Well, as you can see, just easily is no. Grow and develop bodily also next week, the bodily expression, and to use sex responsibly. Movement, residence, and domicile, we will see detail this week. Freedom of assembly, and so many others. Well, that's important. But, well, you have in the code all of them. If we have time, we will see a little more the last one, but in any case, we will see some of them now. And now we will talk about freedom, the second active act, that is having a disposition. Only the human being that have will can properly have and dispose of things. That is quite interesting. You can say no, but a lion can have its territory, no? In fact, animals used to mark, delimitate their territories using so many things of their bodies. You know very well which one. To delimitate their territory. but this is not the same notion of having, at least in the human way, and the disposition that the human being has. Why? Because what is having in the juridical, in the legal sense? Having is the intellectual, volitional, psychic, or physical possession, actual, habitual, or virtual, of good, of a good by which it is ascribed for oneself. It is ascribed for oneself. This is the most important thing. It's the intellect that realizes that this is mine. If you don't have intellect, you cannot have properly, at least in the legal sense. You can say, well, what about the possessions of the children? They have things. Well, properly, they can take in their hands, but they need a support, probably the intellect of the parents that say, well, you have it, but the parents with the intellect ascribe the things and help them to possess things. So there is the intellect, the body actions, the external things, and disposing. Disposing is a little more than have. Disposing is the action of the will that provides a specific sense, an end, an aim, previously known. Once again, here more than in having, the intellect needs to work. Previously known to something that one has. For example, if I have a computer, I can sell it, I can rent my computer, I can destroy my computer, I can put in a drawer for 6 months, for example. Well, but first, I have to know which will be the aim. For what thing I am doing that. And then will be an act, really an act of disposition. It's not just an act. For example, I have flies surrounding my head. No? Well, it's not that is not an act of having or disposition in the legal way. It's a fact. The having and the dispositions require a little act of the knowledge and a little, at least, act of the will. Yeah, disposition more. Having as an end, well, that is a limit of the code that say all things that we do in our lives is to have something in some sense, no? To have knowledge, to have food, to have people, to have close people, no? But not in the sense of disposition, no? But of the people, but in the sense of have some contact relations with them, some contact or relation also with God. Elvis, yes.
Prof, I had a question on having as an end. Why did you specifically focus on having as the end itself, rather than something like, let's say, as a result of always having man's core objective is survival? So why wasn't survival not the end?
Well, survival is well an end, obviously, of some actions, not of all actions. You have to survive, but for what? Probably because you want to develop yourself, and you want to be happy in your life, and to grow, and to have. Survival is just the first step. Okay, but in any case, survival is to have your life. So that is an end. But you can have also happiness. you can have also relationships. You can have, so the development of the person, I'm using now the philosophical notion of having that is so deep. Yeah. I'm giving you the theoretical part of human rights and the laws, and you will see them many times the case law are not so developed. Many other times, yes, but well, it's good to mix the both views. Okay.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay. The use of the technique. Any kind of technique is a technique to have. Yeah, the technique of the computer, no? Allows us to have more knowledge, to get more access to many places, to Crescent Island, for example, no? That is so far now and is so close at the same time. Well, and one other thing related, no, to inhabit is related to having, no, means to be in a place having it. So that is interesting because the way of disposition is quite different in the human being than in the animals. We have to protect the human being, protecting the way of having of the human. It is peculiar to human to be in a place inhabiting it, possessing it personally. You can see when you have a room, you will put the things that you want in the order that you want. No? Making it concrete to develop his personal being, his intimacy, and his family or her family there. Okay. And I will not talk about creation, that is quite related with both, and we will talk a little at the end of this subject, but we will talk about now the passive act of desire and love. Once again, the heart is quite related with love. Yeah, the ancient people used to say, well, that there is the warmth of the heat of the of the body, and that's why the body can move, you know? Because they realize that people are not warm. Yes, Alice, don't you want to say something?
I had a question on the previous slide on inhabiting.
Yeah.
Do we say then inhabiting in itself is a natural right? And secondly, if we qualify inhabiting to be a natural right, then it essentially means that this right needs to be protected by the state. So is this then the right to ownership of private property and the right to inhabit being protected?
Yeah. Yes. To all of your questions. We will see a little more. Yes, if it is a human characteristic, you have to protect, because you protect the human, protecting the human characteristics. That's why this is the approach, no? And that's why at the other week I asked you, well, which could be the limits or the basis of the grounds of the human rights? Any human right can be, well, we will see. This will be in addition to the answers, directly human right, because it's so related to the nuclear characteristic, to the main characteristics of the human being. Okay, so love as a principle of activity. All things that we do for the sake of law. For the sake of law. Yeah. Why we choose something? Because why we choose this movie? Because this movie we love more than that movie than other. And why? So, and at the end, all things are a matter of law. That is a limit, no, of the code. Benevolent creative law is the most profound use of the will. What is the benevolent creative law? Well, the love of the parents for you, no, or for the children. Usually, they create a lot of duties, a lot of things to give to help children, their children, no? Or the love of a girlfriend or a boyfriend, well, that is continually creating new things to give to the ones that they love. No? The self-donation of ourselves, that is the benevolent creative love. Going out of oneself to give oneself to the beloved is the most human and most intense way of loving and of living also, no? Yeah, giving ourselves, no? Then we will discover that we can give always more, because there is no limit in the level of act of giving, no? You can give more, and you are not destroying yourself, no? The level of act of being. In the level of the body, yes, yeah. At one point, you have no more strengthness to go in the same way. No? Beauties that produced by the law. Whoever is loved in any way has a proportional duty of gratitude. So if I receive some help, some support in any, at least I have the duty of gratitude. But it means so many things. You will read in the code. No? At least not to harm the ones who helped you or who support you. And those who love each other are always in debt to each other. This is a phrase also of C.S. Lewis and many other authors. No? Those who love each other are always in debt to each other. That's why you can see, for example, no, a slave can do many things, working 20 hours a day, as well as your parents. Some parents can have, for example, I saw that many times. No? Their children in the hospital, they work 20 hours a day. Incredible, no? And to help him, for company, for gain some money, to pay the hospital, and so many things, no? It's the same in both cases. But in one case is slavery, and in the other not, because this is a depth of love. That is the distinction between slavery and the depths of the love, no? That freely acquired. That is important. For many things, there are many cases also related with that. So, after, I don't know if any one of you have any question about love or freedom or disposition. I think that better is that first you read the things that I provided you, and if you have any question, you can email me for anything. Now we can see a little more about freedom of movement, residence, assembly, and home. That is the thing related to the question that Ali asked me just a few minutes ago. And then we will see identity. Let's begin with freedom of movement, residence, assembly. And we will begin with a case law. A real case.
I have a question.
Yes. Okay.
A question. Yes, a question about love.
Yeah. Well.
So here in one of the limits it says
any problem with you and your no.
No. No, but it's just something that crossed my mind.
Okay.
So you said that whoever is loved in any way has a proportional duty of gratitude, and for those who love each other, they're always in debt to each other.
Yeah.
So is there a duty of someone who is loved So assume that I love someone, yeah?
Mhm.
The person who I love does not love me.
Yeah,
So do
that
they
person
have
is failing in the duty, legal duty of gratitude. That's why
uh-huh.
we have a legal duty of gratitude with our parents. They give us all things to ourselves. We have to help them when they have any kind of need. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, when you, for example, when you receive part of a heritage by a donation, yeah, not because it was a duty, you have some specific duties of great gratitude to those people. In many countries, so well regulated, and also with the duty of help in their needs if they pass any strong need. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Obviously, if someone give you an ice cream, but the level of great gratitude, the debt is not so big, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So let's continue with our journey between the ocean, the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. And this is the story of one guy called Vélez. Jesus Tranquilo Vélez Lor, a very long name. People there in South America used, and in America used to have this kind of names. He was an Ecuadorian citizen that decided to travel walking from Ecuador to Panama. He said trying to reach the United States to fulfill his American dream. It was not so true because because he was a dealer, a trader, and in September 16 of 1996, Bellet was arrested and deported because he had not the documents to be in Panama. So he was dealing with so many merchandise, well, many goods, many assets there. He was arrested and deported. But well, that was an migration issue, the first one. And it's interesting because in 1916 there was a decree signed and approved in Panama that says any alien who evades the order for deportation issued against him by staying in the country in a clandestine way or who floats the penalty by returning to the country shall be sentenced to 2 years of agricultural work in the penal colony of Coiba and will be obliged to leave the country at the end of that period. So after some years, in January 3, at the very beginning of the 2002 year, Vélez was found there in Panama again trading things. He was again arrested and once again deported. Well, you can see, well, and in this second time, the authorities could apply the Decree Law 16, approved in 1916, and to put him, well, in 2 years of agricultural work in the penal colony of Coiba. Well, but they decided to deport. But what happened after that? That just 10 months after that, Vélez was found again in Panama, and he was arrested again. So you can say, well, this guy, well, he should be arrested. Well, but in this case, happened many things. No, for example, the policeman confiscate his personal effects, and not only that, including $2,000 more or less, a camera, and his identity card also. That is, and the border police handcuffed Mr. Vélez Lord, shaking his feet, and forced him to walk barefoot to a small indigenous town in Ember. Well, he is handcuffed to a metal post for 8 hours until he is transferred by helicopter to another town. And then there was in a prison, and then in another prison, La Joya y La Joyita. This is, and all of them will be that very precarious and very bad conditions. They allow, for example, one of them just 1,500 people there, and they were more than 2,000 people, and in the other more or less the same, almost the double of the people. So he was, let me see, well, at the next day, but this was transferred to La Palma prison, because to a prison, not a detention center for undocumented people, to a prison, because they had no cell blocks for undocumented people. And after that, well, many things happened. No? In December, he received a sentence of 2-year prison. Yeah, 2 years prison. Here you have 2 years of agricultural work. Here, 2 years prison, more or less, no? The same. In a very bad conditions of that prison. So after 1 year, he received a lot of suffer, and he had a poor health because he received a lot of beatings by the police and by the people in that prison. Also, they had some problems in the head. Some people say, well, a fracture in the head, a lot of dizziness, a lot of headache, and a lot of things. He asked many times, please, let's go to a hospital to scan my head, because I think that I have a lot of problems. But never it happened. No? There was no scan, there was no things, no any aid for these kind of things. And at the end of the day, well, he decided, well, I will do a hunger strike, because I'm feeling so bad here, and I will do a hunger strike. So the police said, you want to do a hunger strike? He should the half of his mouth. So he said, well, we will put you in the worst part of the prison for a very, very hard and bad people, bad criminals, alone, and they throw gas in that prison in order to oblige him to open his mouth. And he did that, obviously, no? And he stopped the hunger strike in that cell. But this new punishment, well, with this new punishment was worse, no? And finally, there was a problem, because there was no water in the whole area of the prison for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks. Why? Well, because there was an issue of the service of the water. But in a prison with 3,000 people without water, imagine that. They were drinking whatever you imagine, whatever you imagine, to survive during 2 weeks. In these 2 weeks, he gained also some ulcers and many things. Well, at the end of the day, he was able to request the deportation, many times denied in the past, but with the support of some embassy. And finally, in September 8th of 2003, the National Office of Migration of Panama decided to commute his sentence and deport him. So it means more or less after 1 year on that prison. Incredible, the story. We can see two parts of the story. The first one, well, probably the rest was not so clear in going once and again to the same place. And the second part was an issue of the authorities of Panama. So, and this is the interesting thing here. The interesting thing. He decided to file Panama first, the Panama embassy in Ecuador, and then Panama, saying, well, I am treated like well, not in a human way, this with a lot of cruelty. He filed issue Panama. The interesting thing, well, I don't know what kind of judgment you will do if you were the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. That was a case of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. What will be your judgment here? Any one of you want to try? Any new people, for example, Margaret, or yes, well, Kevin, or Ali.
Yes.
Okay.
Following the facts of the case that you provided for us, to my best knowledge as the judge, I would first of all ensure that he is deported back to his country.
Yeah, he is sued from Ecuador, so that is clear. Okay, and the second.
And for the Panama government to compensate him for the lack of standards of human rights and dignity that were incurred to him during the prison term.
Yeah, okay, a compensation. Of how much?
Maybe now it will have been up to the discretions of the court, and maybe he would have highlighted how much he would be compensated so that he can drop the case.
Yeah, that is an important question, because you can see the many things that he lost. $2,000 there because the confiscation, the camera, that kind of things. But how you compensate all the medical needs? Well, you can see how much it is, and at the end it was just $50,000, the compensation that the judgment said. Okay, 50,000 is not so much. No. Seeing all things that happen. At least, yes.
I'm trying to sort of identify his crime. and why he was arrested, so that I can sort of.
That is
continue
important. That is quite important. So what do you think about this? Sorry, I can.
I still don't know what Veles committed and why. I'm still not aware why Veles was arrested. But if at all he reported as a result of just being a trader, of just being a trader, then I would, as a judge, I would issue him compensation because of, as a result, deferred right. But even secondly, the other conflict would be the national government. I don't know if he was from Ecuador or Panama, but
Ecuador.
the national government, the national government of Ecuador should is legitimate in taking a stand against the actions, because of how subsequently being arrested and deported isn't essentially working form of a defect, which was supposed to be the case as a form of because of the justice system.
Okay. There are many things. Well, obviously there was no compensation. Obviously there were another kind of things. But the important thing is Panama government has the right to punish people who have no documents or not. That is the important question. That is the important question in this case. Obviously, the other things related to the health and things is so clear, no? And the Inter-American Court of Human Rights said, no, states cannot punish in that way anyone because they have not just documents, no? That is not a crime. Well, that obviously, and Panama, after that, avoid this decree. Now it's no longer in force, this decree in Panama. So that is interesting. And the deepest question here, it is, does the states have the power to put borders and to say you cannot enter into my state or into my country, and you can or not, or to treat different people that are from the country and are not in the country? What do you think about that specifically? What kind of rights have the country in these kind of things, in this kind of documents, asking documents, to allow people to come their countries? Yes, Ali.
Let's say first, some individuals who are not citizens of a country with no documents, or migrants or aliens, are individuals who essentially should be given a form of temporary recognition within a state. So that form of temporary recognition will allow them to enjoy some basic human rights, which cannot be taken away from them, such as the freedom of movement, freedom to access health, and freedom to access food. But some rights, such as right to voting in itself, becomes a very difficult right because of how they can be used as a center of monopoly being by political representatives in trying to amass so many votes for them. So I mean,
I agree that specifically in political rights there could be some distinction. But in any case, today there is a new movement around the world, also joined by the Pope in his last letter, that is a global movement of the global citizenship, or the universal citizenship is also called. Now, the end of the day, the world, who is the owner of the world? Not some authorities of some states. It's the humankind itself. And that's why anyone in this earth should be able to travel wherever they want, wherever, by any reason. I don't know if you realize that there is a discrimination, a real discrimination. There are some states that say, well, you can come in my state and I will provide you all the documents if you have money. If you will put money in my country, but if not, I will not accept you. That is clearly a discrimination because the wealthiness of an individual, saying poor people cannot come in my state, in my country. This is discrimination. Clear? For me, it's clear. I don't know for you. Yeah, this is so well developed in the last. By the way, I learned that in the last letter of the Pope. That is say this is discrimination. This is discrimination. But I was surprised, really, and I think that it was so clear in that. Well, as you can see, well, if one people, and this is the concept of universal citizenship, if one guy wants to be in any country because he thinks that I can develop myself and my family there, well, that guy should have the right, Obviously, there could be another politics and things. Joseph, yes. You raised your hand, Joseph. Do you want to say something?
Oh yes. Well, I don't think it's discrimination. Really.
Yeah, don't worry. It's just my opinion.
Or I'll call it discrimination with reason. Because I think for that specific, like that example that you've given of someone being discriminated because of not having money. Well, I think it's a way of ensuring that this person will go back to their country, and that
it means that the state only provide the documents to ones to have money to be in the state for time. If two people ask and one have money and the other not, some states will give only the documents to the first one and not to the second one, asking to be there for a long time, not to come back.
Oh well, then don't you think it's because the goal of the state is to, I mean, the state would want revenue, increase in revenue.
It's just a commercial view of who can go to your state, and it's a commercial view. It is clear, it is clear, but the state don't realize that any human being is a value. Really a value that can give many things, not just money, probably many other things, virtues. Well, in any case, you can have any position in any matter, also in the examination, but in the examination you have to put we have seen this in the lecture, this say the book, and I don't agree always with the book, but I think that these are good explanation of how human rights are now. And I believe in this other thing. But you have to put the. Okay, any other comment, idea, recommendation? No? Perfect. Don't worry. So, but this is interesting, and you should know that today there is a movement to approve in all countries the global citizenship in the movement of human rights. and I think that this movement has a lot of reasons to do that. Well, okay, so let's go to another right. The right home. And two questions here. What is home? And second question, what includes home? For me, it's so interesting, this picture that I took with some of you in Nairobi National Museum. I don't know. What is home? What is home? What do you think about? What do you think that is your home? No, it seems to be so easy. Tell me, what is your home? Yes, Ali, and then Kelvin. Oh, Kelvin, okay.
So,
No, Ali. Okay.
first define. So at first define it in the normative sense, that in the normative sense, it's a place where an individual is able to realize his own personal being and be able to realize his own basic rights, such as right to food, healthcare, right to the family, and right, also right work can essentially be materialized within the home. But now in the sort of in the critical sense, the right to home itself, within the different cultural perspectives that extends to the right to identity, right to spirituality,
Yeah,
right to
let's
individuality in terms of how.
We will discuss this later. But you say, well,
Okay.
the place in which I can realize myself. Well, I can develop myself also in my work office. In some sense, I can develop there, and I have also the food, water, and so many things. The only thing probably that you will not have is a bed. In any case, Kelvin, yes.
My answer would have been just the same as what Alia said, but in a basic sense, you'd say it's a geographical location where individuals reach at the end of the day to meet their family and relatives and the people who they are closest to.
Okay.
The social, yeah.
Can you have a home without your family?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so your answer is not absolutely correct. Correct. Elvis.
Just a random guess. Home would be an environment that provides an individual with some sense of belonging.
Some sense of belongings. Well, so yeah, that it's interesting, but if one says, well, I belong to heaven, or I belong to my girlfriend or boyfriend, that is home.
I would say no, because I would say belonging in terms of creating an atmosphere for you to self-actualize and basically form your identity.
Okay, Elvis, don't you know what is the picture that you are seeing now in your screen?
I see it. Yeah, I know it. The nomads are basically moving from place to place, and
Yeah.
you're basically supposed to pack up your belongings.
Perfect. Yes. How do you know that? So, okay. Yeah, for me, that is quite interesting because etymologically, the word casa, in many languages, home, more or less, is the place, and if you see the roots of the word, is the place in which the person keep their things, keep their tools. Does nomad, any nomad have home? nomads can or cannot have home? I will say yes. I'm seeing this picture, no? Where they keep their tools, their things. Well, probably in some place, no? Probably moving all things, and when they have to move, they move with all their things. That is their home, where they keep their things. And that's why when they move, also, that's why the land is part of their home also, no? Because they keep themselves in some specific land, no? They will never go to some island, for example, no? They move just in some land, a specific land. So we have to distinguish more or less house, the building, no, home that is have another sense. It's not just a house. It's in the place in which we keep our things, and probably ourselves. Dwelling, for example, also that is different. No, the place in I sleep one day. So I will put you a very Julian. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I was thinking about the definition that you've given us. That home is where you keep my things. I'm thinking, if I keep my things in a hotel, I even sleep there, then I choose to go somewhere else. Is the hotel my home? Like I feel like that definition is a bit. I'd go for the definition on self-actualization, because where you keep your things, you can keep your things in a hotel and it's not your home. And you can sleep there, but it's not your home.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And not agree with that. Because there is a case law in the European court that says that a hotel is a home. What do you think about that?
Maybe to make it, maybe I'd make it better and say a hotel, it's a temporary home. I don't know, maybe the aspect of temporariness, but I feel like a house has a deeper meaning to it. I don't know. Maybe if they think about it in the lens of a physical.
Yeah, obviously it's not in the same sense, but there is that case law said we have to protect also the people that lives in a hotel, with the same Article 9 of the convention. Well, that is interesting, no? Because in some sense, probably is not the main sense, the definition number one of home, but in some sense, by an extension, and hotel is also a home. Okay, that is quite interesting, your question, because that. And about Ngai, yes. Do you want to say something? You raised your hand. Well, if you don't want, don't worry. Because I want to put you now some song of Lady Delvin. That is, home is where the heart is. And that is a question for Elvis. And he mentioned it, no. And I mentioned, well, if you love a person, you have some sense of belonging to that person. And hear that.
When I left that, Mama said home is where the heart is. When I left that town, I made it all the way to West Virginia, and that's where my heart found exactly where I'm supposed to be. It didn't take much time. It's just south of the Mason-Dixon line.
this is very interesting, no? Home is where the heart is, the heart. So it means that also our family are our home, even if there is no house, no building, no things. So for me, it's quite clear. That's why that was a tricky question for Elvis, no? If my girlfriend could be my home, in some sense, yes, more my wife, obviously, or your husband, no? So house is the place where the person and his things are kept. Home, especially. This includes, it's properly is home, no? The family, first the family, and first, this is interesting, no? First the family. That's why the most deep notion is the people, no? In so many places, for example, in the Bible, you can see that, no? I'm going to the home of the Father after my life. When I die, I will go there. What is the home of our Father? Well, the person, principally the person, no? Not a specific room with 4 walls. So then, the place where the person stays and make his own to protect and feed himself, rest and satisfy other needs, to keep their self, the person. The place where the person keeps her things or his things, you know, mainly the most intimate ones, and organized them to live to his liking. Well, that is interesting. The right to home, there are many limits in the code that you will read. Right to home, the right to a traditional land. In the last version, please, you have to download the last version that now is in the e-learning platform on the website. Well, and the refugees and displaced, there is a limit also that talks about that. But this is quite interesting. I think so. You can see here another nomad, but this time is a nomad from, I think that's from Russia. So different, no? They also have a place to keep their things, and they will move from time to time from each place. Right to home. The right to home, this we define. We gave the notion of home. Now we will give the notion of the right to home. What is the right, properly the right? It is proper to the human being to have a home first. It's a human characteristic that we have to protect. To protect the human, we have to protect the human characteristics. So it's a human characteristic and we have to protect that. A home should be provided for those who lack one, especially to the minor. That is so clear. No? It's just that there is a special duty, obligation for the minor. Second, the home life. And that's why we can talk about home life. And the family intimacy are inviolable. Well, this is stated in many constitutions around the world, and some Declaration of Human Rights. The right to privacy to the family, no? That is more or less related to the home, and then the non-disturbance of the home, of the peace of the home, and so many things. No domicile must be invaded or destroyed. That is also in many constitutions, in the U.S. constitutions, probably in your constitution too, and in my country also. No one should be forcibly removed from their home or domicile. That is quite interesting. Yeah. No one should be forcibly removed. That is another aspect of the right to home. Yeah. If I have, and that is quite interesting. That is why it's quite interesting to try to realize how is the right and what is the extent, the scope of the home, to the home of the nomads. Yeah, because it's so peculiar circumstances. And probably this is a theme, this is a topic for a dissertation and even for a doctoral thesis, no? The right to home of these people, of nomads. Well, because many times they have a special relation with the land, to the land, many times with a religious conception, to protect the right to home of these people. We have to protect many things, the land also, probably the way that they live, to protect them. It's so difficult to protect other things, no? The unity of their people, and so many things. This is limit 113. And finally, there is here you have the mention of the jurisprudence, the case law. In 1993, there was a conflict problem about if a hotel is part of the home of one guy. Well, the European Court of Human Rights decide that although it is not properly included in Article 8, well, business are also an extended home, business or hotels and things. Let's go now to the last part of our lecture. That is quite interesting also, no? It will be about identity. So the right to identity, that is a very interesting thing. Which is our identity? First, what is the notion of identity? What do you think? We can ask three questions, no? What is identity? What I want, anything that I want is part of my identity or not? At the end of the day, it's the same question. Show it in three different ways, no? Who am I? It's the same question, no? It's the same question. My identity, that the things that distinguish me from others. What do you think of that could be? Yes, Georgina.
I think it's the qualities you have, how you look, your personality, your expressions, basically everything that makes a person who they are, their looks, their personality, their qualities, their beliefs, a lot of things.
A lot of things. And which one is the most important? Because how I look, if I change my tie and I put a red one, I change my identity.
No,
Yeah.
no, you change clothes. That's clothes. Your identity is still the same.
But this is an expression of myself. Sally, yes.
Identity is what somebody says they are, not what somebody personally says they are, not anybody, not what they are defined to be by other people, but what they say specifically that they are. So if I say today I am her, that's my identity. If somebody says they are they, that's their identity. If somebody says they are him, that's their identity. Thank you.
So it means the thing that people say about you.
No. The thing you say you are, that's your identity.
If
you
I
accept
say,
what you say you are, yeah.
If I say, for example, I am a Chinese guy. It's my identity. That?
Of course, it's not that simplistic.
Yeah, but many people used to say that. There are many, for example, people of the women of the United States. There is a group that they say, no, we are African. And seems to be that not. But they say, no, I have the right to choose my identity. Tasneem, yes.
So I think that there's two attributes to identity. There's identity that is defined by your essential characteristics. So when you talk about clothing, that's an accidental characteristic. But the core root of identity is, in essence, who you are. And that is determined by things
That
like
is
gender.
sorry, that is an important word, the core identity. Which could be the core identity? Continue.
Okay, so in terms of the core identity, I was saying that this would be determined by attributes like gender, race, ethnicity, nationality. That does define your identity. And then there's the second part of identity where a person has the right to choose how they want to be identified. So that's more in line with what Sally was saying, but it also helps distinguish the fact that yes, you can say who you are and who you want to be and how people want to see you.
And
but you also have to accept that.
Which one you can think that could be the most important thing that identify ourselves? That's a hard question.
I mean, yeah, it is quite hard.
Yeah, Abdirahman, yes.
I would say at the core of identity is the act of being, like the right the right to want to exist. For example, we talked about how new human rights can appear in the last class, like the right to digital identity now.
Yeah, but the act of being, no one can see the act of being. We can see just the properties, the manifestation. Which one would be the most important manifestation that to realize it? And it's so easy. It's so easy. How do you distinguish one guy from another? How I am distinguishing you now. When I give you the word, the chance to speak, what I say? Rosalind, yes.
The name.
The name, very good. The name, but not the name, not just the name. The last name and the first name, both. The last name is so important. And specifically, this last name is the name, the given name given by our parents or by our family. Probably even physically, we are 99% of the things that we received from our parents, physically, I mean, no? The DNA, is the same, and we are repeating. That's why we are human, part of the humankind. Yeah, the things we are not chimpanzees, we are not cats, we are not. The things that we receive, no? The relationship of origin determine what we are. That's why it's so important, because the relationship of origin says you are a human, you are a boy, you are a girl, and so many things, no? The 99.999999% of our identity we receive we develop little things, obviously, with our biography, with our preference, with my tie, no? My tie that now is yellow, but I can change, obviously. But obviously, it's part of my identity, my tie, also. That was a tricky question, but it's also. So it is important to see. I will put first the limit in to realize more or less what is limit number 96. That is, the identity of each human being is made up of the characteristic of the personal act of being. Very good at Virat. This is so deep, no? And of human nature, of both. But also the spiritual, secret, and bodily specificities of each individual. So the tone of voice, the image, the height, the weight, and so on. And also the biography. And this is made up, the biography, of many things. First, the relation of origin, the action of the person, the acquired habits of the will, the culture and knowledge acquired by the intelligence, all the things that we have. For example, I can say, no, this is a smart guy. This is a man who knows so much, and that student don't know many things of my subject. I don't know. I expect that you all will know many things, but it's evident that some of students will take advantage more of this, the same subject, and others not so much. Relationship with other people, the distinctive signs acquired in society, all the preferences and the relations. And I will put now an example of the informatic, the cyberspace. The digital identity. This is an important issue, the new generation of human rights. What is the digital identity? You know that Google, Facebook, and many media used to build, to construct the identity of each individual, to sell information, to give ads, to promote things. Specifically for each individual, there is a lot of issues with privacy things, no? So this is a concept well developed in the digital field. And they say, well, what is your identity in the cyberspace on internet? Which is, well, anything that you do there is part of your identity. For example, if you open an account in Flickr to upload photos, well, that account is part of your identity. Each photo, each picture that you put there is part of your identity. Or even if you put in YouTube a like, for example, I don't know if you have seen the Jerusalem challenge, in which some babies are dancing. It's so good. If you put a like there, well, this like is part of your identity. You are the ones who like babies dance in Jerusalem. Or even it could be also the worst video of YouTube, I don't know, with the worst music that no one should hear. No, you are the follower of the worst band. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, so each action that you do on internet develop your identity on the cyberspace. No? Opening an account, for example, on eBay, buying something, or in any other platform, or opening an account in LinkedIn, or in Facebook, or when you put in Second Life an avatar and you play in avatar doing many things, good things and not so good things in Second Life, well, you are developing things. But it is the same in the real life. For example, if you kill someone, well, it is not just an action that is an action that is in the past. No, you become a killer for the whole your life. You become a killer. You can repent yourself also. So then you will be a repented killer, no? A repented thief also. The famous theft of the cross, no? But this is a theft. And so each action that we do develop who we are. So that is important, no? And we can follow the idea of Tasnim, no? That is quite clear in the field of digital identity. So there is a core identity. People used to say that the person who programmed this, first the name, the biometric data, the siblings, the thing of the reality, the sex, things that you cannot change or appertain to the real life, and you cannot change easily. For example, the profession. Well, if you study law, you will be a lawyer, obviously, for the whole your life. Probably you cannot exercise law, but another thing that you will be a lawyer for the whole your life, no? And the residency and the biography, no? And this is so important. For example, when you suppose that you lost your Gmail account because one hacker hacks you, what kind of things Google will ask? Well, the core identity. On the other hand, you have the uncore identity. No? There will be nicknames, passwords, login names, the avatar searches, or password again, sorry, likes, the thing that you put, no, a like to the babies dancing in Jerusalem. You are the guy that likes that. No, there are other people that don't like these kind of things. No, the preference and the views. No, you were the person that view 100 times the video of the babies. Once again, so, yeah. But also this is part of your identity. And that's why using that, Google will put, if you put like to that baby's more videos of babies dancing and other things. Yeah, because that is yourself. And on the other hand, if you unfortunately one day suffer hacking of your account, Gmail account, well, Google will ask you the core identity. And on the field of the law, it's quite important to know this kind of thing, because the core identity should be protected more. It's more stable. It deserves another statute, legal statute. Okay, I think that is clear, no? There is also three words that we have to distinguish. I don't know, the relation with freedom and history, no? Yeah, history is not determined. We are not just matching this, not everything said. No, we can, with freedom, decide what will be the history. Can you distinguish time, history, and biography, or not? I think that this is an easy question. What is the difference between them? No one to try. Yeah, Tasnim.
So I think that time is the general concept of just both like all the past, present, and necessarily thing. It just says that it's a general concept essentially that dictates what happens when, or what happens, or what will happen, or what has happened. And then history is specific to the past, so events that have already occurred. And then a biography is essentially the movement of time from a personal perspective.
Yeah, well, that is good. The biography is personal, and history is not personal.
Yes, it isn't.
Yeah.
It can be very general to any past event.
Yeah, don't you know the difference between history and prehistory? Prehistory.
I believe that prehistory, in terms of like the prehistorical ages, can be history that occurred before we could document it.
Exactly.
So, you know, the time of dinosaurs or
Before,
times like that.
specifically before we can write, because when we can write, we know what people are thinking about. Okay, and that's why the history is the history also of the human and of the person. There is no history of the, well, a kind of history, yes, but it's just evolution. It's time passing, things happen. There is no history, for example, of the planets, of the sun, of there is just time, things that happen. No? Properly, history of the person, and person with intellect, and what we divide, why we divide prehistory before the thing. We have some notion of the intellect, and after that, that is when you can write. If we have a written document, then will be the beginning of history. Okay, and time, Aristotle used to say that is the number of the change. Time is in everything that change. There is no time just in God, but in the planets, in the solar system, in the cosmos, and we are on the time. We are on the time. But history, well, we are not immersed absolutely in the history. We are doing our history. Each one, and this very personal approach is the biography. So regarding himself, yeah. Regarding other people, there is history, because there is the history of all humankind. You know? And finally, this. No? Is time a value or not? I think that we have said something about this. What do you think? If it is a value, we say no. In some sense, yes, but properly multiplies the value or the anti-value. For example, you have to suffer a bad thing is not a value to suffer more years. It's an anti-value. Just multiply the good thing or the bad thing 1 year. For example, if you have to suffer, yeah, Juan, don't you want to say something?
I would say time could be a value or anti-value, depending on the experience.
Yeah, what kind of things multiply? If multiply, for example, work, well, 10 years of work is good, and is better than 1 year of work. No? Yeah. But if it is jail, well, it's worse, 10 years. Yeah. Okay, it is an easy question. And let's go to the final right of today. Don't you know what it is? It's related to that identity, right to dress and to fashion. It's a new right. developed recently, but now you have many books that and many essays and articles, papers, and so on about the right to dress and fashion. That is quite important. So I will ask you, what do you think about this right? Well, and for this, remember the technique, the methodology that we learned in jurisprudence. How to develop the theoretical scheme of each right. Well, first, know as much as we can the reality, then try to see the ends of this reality, and then we can think about some principles, and then, well, the laws and things. No? So to develop, I can speak you many things about this. There are also some judgments about dress and human rights court, specifically in Europe. This time is in Europe. Well, about the burqa and many other things. But first, let's go with the same approach. Which is dress? How we can define which one is the notion of dress? Second, which are dress for? For which kind of aims we can find in the clothes, in the fashion also, and then, well, we can develop a little more. What do you think that this dress is so evident? It seems to be. No one of you. This also is a topic for a dissertation and even for a thesis. The right to dress and fashion and human rights. Yes, Tasnim.
So I think that the distinction that I can make in terms of dress and fashion is, first of all, the right to dress addresses the right to clothing, because, you know, since bibliological times, we now wear clothes from, you know, the Adam and Eve initial history. So it's just a right to clothing, and then a right to fashion is a right to certain clothing that allows us to express ourselves, which is also in line with our right to identity.
What is dress?
I think dress is just clothing. It's dress means the right to clothe yourself.
Well, dress is not that right, first.
Okay, so
I mean, it's a right, but the dress properly, the definition, the notion is not a right. It's another thing, a physical thing. A right is not physical material. Yes, Abdirahman. Yes.
Yeah, the distinction could also come from the right to dress is related to the basic dignity of the person, so to cover oneself, and then in the fashion, just like Tasnim said, it's the right to identity now, to express yourself in a certain way.
Probably could be more related with identity. But what is a dress, and what is for? Or clothes? Yeah, okay. What is clothes? What people and why people wear clothes? Peace, faith, peace. Okay.
A cloth is, I don't say it's a thing, but it's like a cover up of,
for what?
To protect one's dignity by covering up the nakedness, to prevent people from feeling cold, to identify oneself in terms of the expression.
Perfect. Perfect. Clothing, a necessary possession. It's a necessary possession of human being, because well, you cannot be naked when there is ice, when there is snow. Well, you cannot subsist. More, I think that probably an hour there without clothes, you will die. In -5, -13, you need dress with clothes to protect yourself. No, a necessary possession of the human being. The way of dressing is subject to the rules of what is appropriate and suitable. So the aim, perfect. I don't know if you were reading, but it's perfect, no? Your answer. So to protect the privacy of the person, to protect the privacy, the bodily privacy, especially the sexual one, no? To avoid, and this is very interesting, this is so deep, this line, to avoid that he or she could be treated as an object of pleasure. Yeah, dress is also to avoid that. No? If you have the whole control as Adam and Eve, there will be no problem. But if we have patience in ourselves, well, it's so easy to treat another as an object of pleasure. So not as a person, but as an object. Okay. Second aim, to enable better adaptation to environment, or to protect of the snow and or many things, no? Or even to protect from mosquitoes. And then to manifest the identity of the individual. And that's why the policeman used to wear some different clothes than the doctor in a hospital, and a taxi driver, and a priest, and a minister of any other any belief. But why? Because it manifests our identity. If I wear shorts, I will be not your professor, because the usual way of the lawyers, professors, is to wear more formally. Well, all lawyers are quite elegant. So it manifests also that you are a lawyer or you are a dealer. Yeah. Well, the protection of privacy is done by preventing the dress from drawing too much attention and the somatic sexual characteristic covering the body decorously. There are things that our culture are losing now. That is why it's interesting to know why we protect. We have nowadays an important case law in Europe about the burqa, that says the European Court of Human Rights that you can wear anything that you want, but if there is a security problems, well, you have to unhide yourself. And this kind of security problems could be, for example, in prisons, that is so clear, and also when the police man or any authority wants to know the identity of someone, well, you have to uncover your face according to that case law. That is, I think that probably could be some reasons, but obviously, at least I think that everyone have the right to wear what they want. No. Okay, Sally, last question to finish this.
Yeah, I mean, I have a question. I'm a bit disturbed as to the construction of this particular right, especially we are talking about human rights here. And when we say, for example, the aim of human dress is to protect the privacy of the person, especially the sexual one, to avoid that he could be treated as an object of pleasure. I mean, we have, and you've said it's to cover up and do all those things. people have dressed and covered up from head to toe, but they are still objects of pleasure. Then they are also, their attention has been drawn to people who have even dressed and overdressed. So in this particular construction of this right, how effective is this? Because I think what the contribution we had made earlier on what the right to dress and fashion is would have been a better construction of this right, in that whether I am dressed or undressed, there's no reason for me to be made an object of pleasure. I don't think there should be a correlation as to that. And I'm not just saying that to be problematic or anything, but we are specifically talking about the right to dress. So for me, I think the way we have constructed this right to dress does not secure our human rights, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, first, you can believe whatever you want, obviously, no? And I have no problem. You can put, if I ask in some examination, you can put, well, the professor said that, but I believe the contrary, and there will be no problem at all. Second, it was not just my answer, but also the answer of some of you, and it's also a biblical answer. No? After the sin, they realized that they were naked, and they decided to protect themselves, more or less. No? Yeah, well, so you can find traces also in many cultures, not just in the Christian culture. No? Then I think that many of you say that, no, why we use clothes? No, because we have to protect ourselves. No, also because, well, and there were, on the other hand, many laws, and still are many laws. Well, you cannot walk in the city naked. Why? Well, you have the aims here, no? Because, well, it seems to me many times people cannot explain very easily, but at least they will say, no, you have to protect yourself, and you have, yeah. This is also an issue of public morality that is so different than the personal morality. The public morality is also an issue of that, and that's why in many criminal codes around the world, well, there are many things about this, no? You cannot show at any time naked people in the television. No. Why? Explain that. Explain that. Well, I'm trying to explain, showing the aims of the dress that I think that makes sense, but that you can think whatever you want. As in anything, no? As in anything, I'm just giving my opinion here. Okay, so thank you so much for the lecture of today.